Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Comic Corner, where we do news, reviews, and interviews. And today we have a very special interview for y'all. I am joined by two very special guests, friends of the show, and writer and artist of the new book Superguy that you can go back on Kickstarter right now. I am joined by Anthony Iannaccio and Joey Murphy. How are you guys
Hello.
doing? I am so
What up?
happy to have you guys on here. Welcome to the
Good
show.
to be here.
We're happy to be on, TJ. This is awesome.
And like I said, it's awesome to have you guys. Me and Anthony have been friends for like a good while now, actually. This is our first in-person conversation. So this has been a long time coming to have you on the show. And we are here to talk about such an awesome book. And Joey, you are the artist of this book. And I told you before we started recording this that I really love your art in this book, man. And it really complements Tony's style, I think, so well. But before we get into the nitty gritty of Superguy, very quickly, or we'll see how long it takes, because you guys have both some interesting stories here. So, just like any other comic podcast, we like to do your, origin story, how you got into comics, yada, 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 all that good stuff. So, Joey, I want to start with you, my friend. So,
Sure.
I saw that you actually didn't even, start getting into comics or drawing comics until very recently. So instead
recently.
of comics, I just want to ask you just kind of generally, what is what began your journey as an artist? Like when you were younger, what kind of drew you, no pun intended, drew you to becoming an artist?
That's an excellent question. That's a really good question. I'm not sure exactly. I've been drawing literally ever since I can remember. Some of my earlier memories, growing up when I was just a little guy. It was we'd go to church every Sunday. I was raised, religious, and I was just I didn't care. All I wanted to do was draw. So I'd take a wad of paper, not a wad, a small stack of paper, staple it, make my own drawing pad, and just sit backwards on the pew using it as my drawing desk while everyone's praying and singing. I'm just doodling whatever the hell I was drawing back then.
The spirit took you over, man.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just grew up drawing and doodling in my margins, and some of my teachers liked it. Some of them did not like it. Most of them didn't like my margin drawings. And it really wasn't until maybe 10-ish years ago, right after I moved here to Los Angeles, that I really started realizing that posting my stuff on Instagram and social media and stuff, people were looking for that kind of stuff to buy, and I can actually make a little bit of money doing this. And that kind of opened up my world a little bit, and I started drawing a lot more. And during the lockdown, I drew constantly, and my skill level went up during that whole time. And that's enter Anthony and Comics and Chronic, and they see my artwork and they're like, hey, do our logo. And Anthony's like,
hey, I like the cut of this guy's jib.
Yeah. But yeah, as for comics, I did a few month-long 1 page a day type things for Inktober on Instagram before, nothing super serious, but just kind of had the story in my mind, just wanted to get it out. But I wasn't really taking it seriously or really doing anything with it, just drawing it to draw. But it's transferred to now, and here we are talking about the best comic I've ever drawn. So
like I said, I mean, you totally killed it. And with that, I saw also that you shouted out, things like Archie, Calvin and Hobbes, the Far Side. So would you say that's kind of where your style would originated, or where your influence kind of began?
Oh, for sure. Calvin and Hobbes mixed with a healthy dose of growing up on Disney movies and cartoons, and kind of incorporating a bit of that soft roundness Disney look to. I mean, I think everyone who draws is heavily influenced by Disney, but definitely for sure Calvin and Hobbes. They're visually a pretty big inspiration. Like the way I draw trees, I was like, oh, how would Bill Watterson draw a tree? Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
It just kind of morphed into like my own version of that, and thank you, Bill Watterson. Thank you, Calvin.
I mean, they say don't mess with the classics, right? And it's funny that you mentioned the Disney thing, because I would have never put that together, but now that you say that, I can totally see what you mean, like kind of the roundness, kind of smoothness of the lines. But Tony, over to you. So kind of similar, actually. I guess not like recently, but you were saying how you got into comics not until like high school, really. Sort of the time around where Civil War, Infinite Crisis, but also kind of doing something different than comic origin. I know that you are also a big fan of things like comedy, wrestling. You used to do some sketch comedy. We were just talking about this earlier. Your sketches with Elderly Ninja, little sketch group. You actually wrote for WWE, a writer's assistant, which I thought was freaking awesome. So again, just kind of where did all of that kind of creativity start? Like when did you really kind of start writing, outside of just your influence of comics?
Honestly, like from a young age, right? Like I used to, like my grandma used to watch me and my cousins. I have a bunch of cousins, and I was pretty much like the entertainment for us. Like, yeah, we'd watch like TV, but like we tried to like, we were 90s kids. So we still went outside to play and like actually do things, we didn't have like anything to really distract us too much in my grandma's house. So like, I was like the entertainment for my family. And so like, I've always had like a knack for making people laugh or trying to make people laugh. And, as a kid, I just always had a big imagination, so like I would play with my action figures and make up random stories. And like when I was starting to get old enough to write, then I would start writing my own stories. Like I could pull out of my closet, like I have a book called The Day It Rained Animals. And I even illustrated that one, like, and there's like severed animal heads. It's kind of crazy.
Oh, no.
I did that in second grade, so I don't know if that says enough about me.
Pushing lines even back then.
Exactly. There you go. So like that's another part of my comedy, right? Like I do try to kind of push it, and in ways that are respectful, I think, and not like put anyone down. Just like pushing it in ways that make you go, oh, okay, like that was. I can think of like an example in Superguy. I think people would feel that way about KK Kringle, just like he's just kind of like no one else would have thought of that random ass character, but like he's a little extreme, but also just it's hilarious. So like, as long as you're laughing at something, I think at the end of the day, that's what I find important, right? So like I always want to make people laugh. So like that just translates into everything I do. So writing all my stories like have a hint of humor. I do like writing like serious sci-fi stuff. And I do have things like that I would love to do for comics, not just comedy. But, I feel like it's my niche. I love comedy. I love making people laugh. And that just inspires everything I do.
Absolutely. And the comedy totally comes through in the book. Like this book is a comedy, but there are also some like really good core themes in this book that I definitely want to get into. That I see you, Tony. I see you throwing those in underneath. It's not all just goofs and gaffs here. So before what'd you say? Sorry.
No, I said you caught us.
Yep. Caught you red-handed, man. This was actually an interrogation the whole time. This was never an interview. No. But so. Again, you guys both kind of came into comics, so not necessarily later, but a little later than we get a lot of people here like, yeah, I grew up on comics. My dad read comics to me while I was in the womb, type stuff. So I want to ask, both you guys are involved. Tony, you are one of the co-hosts of Comics and Chronic, which also, by the way, everyone go check them out. Go like, subscribe, whatever you got to do over there. And Joey, you also, again, kind of got into comics later, started, doing your Instagram comic, The Quickies. And so I guess my question on top of that is, how did that kind of all spiral? like so quickly. Like and everyone watching this on video can see Tony's massive library behind him. And same thing with you, Joey. You're now drawing comic books when you weren't. I don't want to like say you like weren't into them, but wasn't a big major part of your atmosphere for a long time. So how did that kind of snowball, and what were kind of those initial steps you guys both took in learning that process? Joey, I'll throw it off to you first, because I'm sure drawing just like a one panel thing is very different than splitting something up into 5 to 8 panels per page.
Oh, for sure. I mean, they both come with their own like set of challenges. Like with quickies, it's the single panel that we limit ourselves to. So like you have to find a creative way to not only sell the joke, but kind of tell a story sometimes. But like within just one image. Sometimes it's easier than others. So I do appreciate being able to, have a few different panels telling like a bit longer story. That makes it a bit easier. But then you're also, confined to the limits of the page, so you can't just like you got to make a way you got to find a way to make it all fit, within just like those dimensions. But as for like your other question, like how it got to what was the first part of the question?
Yeah, sorry. Sometimes I get off tangents on my questions alone, but just basically like you start drawing, you like kind of start getting into comics, and then all of a sudden like you're drawing a comic. So like just kind of those steps of translating the skill that into this new kind of medium.
I'm not sure. It just all kind of happened. Like I'd been drawing pretty regularly on Instagram for a while. I was doing this thing where like I'd be like, oh, what should I draw? And some people would be like, oh, draw like Venom having a tea party. And I like they would just comment that, and I would be like, oh, that's cool, that's funny, and like what else? And so like I got like a small gathering through that, just kind of doing that every day. And then as I said, like with the lockdown, I'm just like drawing. Like suddenly, like I'm at home all day. What else do I got to do? Instead of like doing one thing, I'm posting, and I kind of lost my train of thought. Awesome. And then that's when. So after like I don't know, like most of the first year of that, my buddy Brandon was like, "Hey, I have this idea for like a comic I would love to submit to the New Yorker. Would you be interested in doing that with me? Just like 10 comics." And I was like, sure, cool. So we did that. New Yorker rejected us. We're like, fine, we'll do it ourselves. We're just gonna put it on Instagram and it'll be ours, and like we won't have to bend to any publications or whatever. And so like we did that for like we haven't missed a week. We've been doing it every like Sunday, Monday, depending, since like 2021. And so like doing that every week and basically constantly, it just really helped me get my my skills and everything to like really hone my storytelling, my visual storytelling abilities. And then that's when this guy saw it and was like, I like this guy's art, I want to have him do my comic.
Well, and I bet too, like you said, like even just taking like the suggestions, like you said, like, oh, Venom doing a tea party, like just the randomness and the every single repetitiveness of it, I'm sure just enhanced your skills so much so that Tony's like, hey, I want a fat dude with a robot sidekick, and like you have plenty of ideas of how you can execute that.
Absolutely. It really helped me think outside the box. Like I never would have thought of a Venom tea party, but here we go.
Well, I mean, it all definitely came together well. And then for Tony too, same kind of question again. I kind of went on a tangent with that, but started reading comics in high school. Now you host a podcast all about comics. You have this huge library. You're writing comics. So what were some of those steps that you took? Because, I mean, you and I both know talking about comics and reading a lot of comics is very different than sitting down and actually writing a script and
Oh yeah.
what a comic script looks like. So what were some of those early steps you took to kind of dissect the process of making a comic as opposed to just reading one?
So like I said, I've been a writer for a long time. So I specifically more of script writing. Like I've written prose, mostly short stories, but a lot more of script writing. And, you know, a comic book script is way more like a movie script or a television script than it is prose. Although, you know, you can definitely combine the two, and, you know, some great ones might, like, the thing about comic scripts too is that, or one of the first things I learned about them is that they could be a million different things. There's no set way to write a comic book script. But after reading so many of them, right, like you just kind of subconsciously learn the language of comics, right? Like you just read so many that, you know, there's something about them that starts to become less mystifying, but I wanted to go deeper than that. Like I wanted to figure out like why, you know, like I only even noticed recently, for instance, like most comics per page are only like maybe 5 or 6 panels. Like the average comic is just going to have 5 or 6 panels per page. And that changes the pacing completely of a story. You know, a story like Invincible moves so fast, it reads so well. And that's because it's like sometimes maybe there's a lot of dialogue, but like it flows so well. Like Robert Kirkman, Ryan Ottley, like they know what they're doing. I bring that up because that's also, I think, a big influence to the way both I was writing Superguy and the way Joey was paneling it and drawing it and just thinking about the layouts for it. But so like, just like I'm saying, so reading so many comics, like I just started to dissect them. I started to get books like there's one by Brian Michael Bendis called Words with Pictures or Words for Pictures, something like that. And it gives like sample scripts and things like that. So once I was able to see like a script next to some actual panels that I've read and like, you know, already digested, it started to become a little bit easier to understand the language of how to write a comic. But I never had the opportunity to write one. So going back to like sketch comedy and things like that, like where did I want to start? I wanted to write a movie, right? I did that in high school, actually. I wrote a movie, but to film a movie, to get like the budget to do a movie, like it was way out of my league. You know, props to anyone that could actually pull that off. But sketch comedy, that's a little easier. You know, it was easier to do 4 or 5 minute things. Still hard though, like not easy, but just easier. And just getting friends and you know, anyone to help out so that I could actually get made. The big thing about being a writer, I guess, is like, you know, I could write a million stories, but like, you know, kind of throw them into the ether or, you know, try to get them published, but they probably won't. And if I want to prove myself as someone that could make anything, I have to make the thing, right? I have to make a movie or make a script or whatever. If I want to prove myself as a comic book writer, of course, I have to make a comic. And so my point being that like a comic is like, I don't want to say it's easy to make, but that it's more accessible, I guess, right? As a medium.
Yeah.
And so like knowing Joey was a blessing. You know, like I just don't know artists like that, you know, and not only that, but he's a great artist and I love his style. And like you said, it complements my writing so well. And I think it really does. And so when I had the opportunity to write the Superguy one shot for the Unknown Heroes anthology, it was a no brainer to ask Joey, but it was also my opportunity to test out these things that I'm talking about, to actually, all right, here's the opportunity to put my money where my mouth is and write a comic book script. And that was the 10-pager for the original Superguy one shot. And then from there, you know, we got a lot of great feedback, and me and Joey knew we had to do a full issue. And that leads us to the Kickstarter. Boy, that was a lot. I usually don't talk a lot.
No, dude. Please,
no, it was great.
Hey, it makes my job easier. Please talk all you want. But I mean, you honestly went into my next kind of question perfectly. So you guys did the one shot for the anthology Unknown Heroes, did the 10-page Ash Can, and now we are here to Superguy, the official first issue. So quick little overview for anyone out there who has not had the opportunity to read this yet. Superguy follows I feel like reluctant hero might even be a little too gracious for Superguy, but a reluctant hero, you could say, that does save the world, but doesn't really, is not too excited about it, and his not so faithful sidekick, Robot Guy, until Robot Guy decides to take matters into his own hands and be a hero himself. So, Superguy guys. I want to ask you guys first before we get this started. So again, this was originally an anthology story. You guys decided to pick it up, make it its own thing. And Tony, you said that the art really had a really profound impact on the character of Superguy. Yeah. So Joey, I want to ask you first, when Tony first came to you with this idea, so you described Superguy as kind of a narcissist. He's lazy. He's someone who doesn't like to use his powers, which I thought was interesting. So Joey, what was your kind of first inception of this guy? Tony, you also, shouted out Captain Quark, which I totally see that, but you did not make him look like Captain Quark. So again, when you heard that, what was your thought process on who this guy is?
Well, when I kind of got not the description of the character, but the characterization of the character, I guess, and kind of based on, Quark and a little bit of Zap Brannigan and everything, I was just I wanted to, show that he has the strength, he's got the muscles and everything, but he doesn't really have a six-pack, because he's usually on his beanbag chair, just mowing down bags and bags of chips. So he's got some pudge to him, and I was just I didn't want to make him look like a typical kind of a doofy guy, because he's not ugly, but he's not handsome really. He's
somewhere
got a
between,
big I kind of took the head structure, chin size of the old Batman animated series and Superman. They're strong, you can tell, because they got a big chin, but this guy's got a little bit more roundness to it. Because he's he's not exactly chiseled. And then I added the constant 5 o'clock shadow, because he just can't be bothered. He's not gonna put in the time to shave clean. Why buy? It's just gonna grow back.
Yeah. So, I mean, can't wait to grill some cheese. So I can't imagine if my man is shaving every day.
Time is cheese, man.
Time is cheese.
Time is cheese.
Ooh, future.
It's all cheese.
Oh man, but yeah. So
I think.
I got all
those. I'm sorry, I was going to say, I think the word you used, I think, is perfect. Doofy. That's he's just he's goofy. He's doofy. Like you said, he's not necessarily ugly, but he's just kind of a goof. He's a goofball.
Yeah.
And exactly. Tony, when you were doing this anthology story, I know you probably had a lot of different stories in mind. I'm sure that you probably pitched Joey a couple of different ideas. But what sparked the you're I want to write about an asshole guy. You know what I mean? What was that kind of initial, I can, this is something that's interesting to explore?
Yeah. I feel I like Superman, but I feel evil Superman has been done, it's been done well, but it's also just been done a lot. And I didn't want to do that, but I feel I wanted to do a comedy, right? So how could I make Superman funny? Some ideas I had were well, if I got superpowers, what would I do? I don't think I would necessarily save the world, or I really wouldn't want to, I'd have reasons why, I have other things to do, but that's kind of the germ of it. Right. So yeah, he's an asshole, but it's also a lot of the things he does and thinks about, I feel they're relatable. I think of kind of Superguy and Robot Guy are kind of parts of my personality in some ways, you want to be the hero, but you also want to stay home and chill and eat a bag of chips. It doesn't matter if you can do something, you don't have to, you're not the boss of me. So it's that kind of attitude really. So lazy Superman, I hadn't seen done, maybe even just seeing your name, a Thor, an Endgame, how he is, but different than that. He's someone that was already a great hero who kind of fell. That's not this. Superguy was never a great hero that fell.
He was never that.
Yeah, exactly. This is who he is. So, and I think comedy just lends itself to that kind of character too. And you know, the more I wrote about him and the more I talked about Superguy and Robot Guy with Joey, like, you know, a lot of people will say this, but it kind of like writes itself. Like he kind of starts to just make sense as like a hero for like our day and age. I think he also makes sense, you know, like a hero that is flawed tremendously and like, you know, looking up to him, there's not much to look up to. You know, he's no better or no different than you and me. So like, you know, we have plans for Superguy to flesh him out a bit more so he doesn't seem so much of like, you know, a one-dimensional kind of dude, but like there's layers to him. Like you said, we have things in here that are not just what they might appear to be on the surface, you know, and that's what we're playing around with here.
Absolutely. And Tony, I'm going to stick with you for a second and kind of piggyback same question over to Joey. But like you said, this book is a comedy, you know, on its face. Like that's like where the heart of it is comedy. And I found, you know, I always find it's interesting translating different genres into the comic book medium. I've talked about this with some horror writers of like the kind of concept of like a horror movie hinges a lot on music and the kind of suspense and all that. But when you're writing a comic, you don't have those kind of tools. And I feel like comedy could also be a little similar in the sense of, you know, facial expressions, movement, you know, physical comedy. And also just how do you go about when you're writing your script, like, I guess you could say like joke placement is probably the best way I can think of it. Like, oh, here's where a joke needs to be, but I shouldn't put a joke here. Like, where does that formula fit?
Honestly, like it's not. You have to go back to what I was saying before about like reading comics, and then you kind of subconsciously get, you know, the language of comics. Like I've been watching comedy movies since I was a little kid. You know, I grew up with like Three Stooges, Marx Brothers, Mel Brooks, and then like whatever was coming out in the 90s, like Ace Ventura, Austin Powers, like everything. And I just like always loved comedy. Like I watched The Simpsons and South Park and Always Sunny and The Office. Like, you know, we had a lot of things throughout our life that were just like solid comic stuff that like I just absorbed so much. I used to watch you know, I did a little stand-up comedy. I used to watch Comedy Central Presents every night, you know, like, and I was watching, you know, like Patton Oswalt do some of his early sets before he ever got big and who I ever knew who he was. But like comics like that, like Mitch Hedberg, like as like a 10-year-old, like jokes going over my head, but somewhere in my mind, like I'm getting like the language of comedy, you know what I'm saying? And this isn't to say that I tried stand-up, I suck at it. But like I just love comedy, and like when I'm writing, it's just kind of natural, I guess. I don't want to sound like, you know, an asshole saying that or like some pretentious
I totally
writer.
get what you mean. No, I totally get what you mean. I mean, I literally read comics for a living. So like you said, like once you read enough of them, there's a language that you kind of pick up on. And I mean, one of my favorites, you shouted out, like The Simpsons. Like there's a formula to The Simpsons, like the punchline, the setup, the concept, you know? So I totally understand. I don't think that sounds like pretentious or anything at all. And kind of same question for you, Joey, again, with comedy, with, you know, going off of Anthony's script, again, if you're doing like a comedy sketch or a movie, like, you know, you can very heavily rely on how you know, the infliction of how you say a line or the way you like make your face or whatever. So how do you go about translating those jokes visually in the script? And I want to bring up one example because I don't know, maybe Anthony, this was in your script, or if you just had you put this in there yourself, Joey, but there's one panel when Robot Guy tells Superguy about the meteor, and they're like, it has to be the George Bush meme. Like it's for sure the George Bush meme. So like, was that just like you were drawn there? It was like, I'm gonna make this George Bush meme, or like, you know what I mean? Like, how do you visualize those comedy kind of elements?
Well, for that one, I wish I could take credit, but that was actually one of Anthony's brilliant ideas. And in the script, there's a few examples of where like he wants something to visually, you know, be based off of XYZ, and that was one of them. So it's like, you know, this is what it has, because like otherwise the joke isn't there. But brilliant, Anthony. Fucking love it.
Thanks.
Subtle. It was subtle, but it was perfect.
I love that you got that too. Thank you for catching that.
Yeah. Otherwise, I'm not sure. Like, I just, when I read the script, I just see it. Like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like I visualize it partially like as like a movie, like moving picture. A movie.
Talking stop motion pictures.
Yeah, moving pictures. I see it both ways. If I'm watching it, but also at the same time, like how it would be blocked on the page simultaneously. I don't know how else to describe it. But yeah, like the trick for like the jokes and stuff is obviously like how to time it as far as like is the setup and punchline in the same panel? Is the setup like a panel or two before? Is it one of those where like there's a couple of beats in between and like you just have to, figure out how to visually represent that and just to get the timing of the joke, because like that comedy is timing. You can't just like rush past every single thing. But I don't know, a little bit of trial and error, at least in the sketching, to see like what works best, and I just go with that. And
I was gonna say, like, no, you talking about that made me realize, like, to answer your question better, TJ, like, I would write, so like me and Joey, came to an agreement on how like much detail I would provide him in the script so that he could, do his own thing. So I don't have exact paneling, like panel 1, it says this and that, but like each page I try to structure as I would a sketch, right? Like where it has, or like a scene where it has to begin and end with something, usually, a joke going throughout so that it makes sense page by page. There is a lot of action too. So like there is like a lot of good comedy, but then a lot of the book also comes down to like the fight scenes and like the dialogue that's happening between Superguy and Robot Guy. But I thought Joey did a great job of just taking my like page by page breakdown, but then putting it in those panels, like he's saying, but then adding like the facial expressions and these really small details that made the jokes pop. Like, yes, they're funny. Like I think I wrote some good ones, but like, holy shit, the way Joey just brought them to life is completely like next level.
Oh. Thank you.
I mean, I absolutely agree, and I'm glad you brought that up too, because I was going to say, Joey, the facial acting, I think, is something that really sells it for sure. Like the super guys' reactions and stuff like that really, I think, helps to sell the jokes and really make them come through. And
thank you.
I want to emphasize also a point that you brought up, Anthony. Like, yes, this book is very funny. Like and I'm not even just saying this, I LOL'd. I literally laughed out loud. Like, how people like say like, oh yeah, like, you do the little like out the nose kind of laugh. Like, no, I audibly chuckled. Yes. But there is a lot of action in this book, and it's good action. Like you don't hold back. It's not just like, oh, funny punchy. Like Superguy and Robot Guy really do go at it. And so going on top of that, how, again, they really do go at it. We kind of alluded to this in the beginning, but there are some deeper themes working here that I picked up on. At least I think I did. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But one question I want to throw to both you guys, because I think, again, obviously, Anthony, you kind of conceptualized the idea, but like you said, Joey, your art really informed who this guy is. I would, just as much. So I think you both will have equal perspective on this. But I feel like one of the questions of this book is kind of what is a hero? And specifically with Superguy, I mean, yes, he saves people, but does not wanting to make him not a hero? Does that make sense? Like, yes, he saves people, but would you consider Superguy a hero or someone who just kind of does it because he think, maybe he's judged if he doesn't, or, maybe some other reason? Joey, I'll throw it off to you first on this
one. I think mostly like he wants the credit for it, so like he'll do it as long as people know that he did it, He's not just gonna. He probably won't go out of his way to save like a box of kittens about to be steamrolled. That's too harsh. He probably would. I don't think he's that heartless.
Right.
Like say I don't know, someone's about to get hit by a car. As long as I don't know, he just wants that he's the one getting the credit for it when he has to do it.
So so if someone someone is about to get hit by a car, but there's no one around to see it, Superguy saved the person. He's out.
Great philosophical question.
Yeah, we're getting into philosophy over here. But Tony, same question. I mean, just because he saves people, does that really make him a hero? Or, like Joey's saying, is it all just for the credit?
Well, I'll say this much. Have we seen Superguy save anyone yet, specifically? He hasn't really. No. I'll say that. That's not a spoiler either. Like,
I mean, we saw him fight some people, but
right. And so Superguy is a hero in name for sure, but that's kind of something deeper here too, right? Like, some people just want to be known as a hero without doing the work or without actually being one. And Superguy is definitely that kind of person. Like this is what I'm saying. Like there's definitely a planned arc for where we're going to take Superguy. I really like characters that seem irredeemable and you're not going to like them at first. And then, they start to do things and that's not who he is yet. Definitely not in this issue. That's not his arc in this one issue. That's for sure. The first issue is definitely more of a focus on Robot Guy. And I think Robot Guy is the one like kind of thinking about these things, he's thinking if he's a hero, but then, we see him do a lot of heroic things. Like it's easy for us to see, and he kind of realizes it too. But, in realizing he's a hero, he realizes, well, what is Superguy doing? He's not doing anything, like he's the public for some reason, we don't know why yet. Like they love Superguy, they see him as their savior. The president doesn't like him, but the public likes him. So there's some redeeming qualities there, I would say. But without just, getting into ideas that are not on the page yet, I would just say that, Superguy is just he's not that dude yet, but there's not what you see on the page for Superguy is who he is.
Yeah. And I mean, just for obviously we're just one issue in, but we really don't know anything about him besides what, like you just said, what we see on the page. But we do get a little bit of Robot Guy, which I want to talk about next because he is my favorite character. I love Robot Guy. I don't care if he's evil or if he's good. I'm on Team Robot Guy. But you guys have said that, especially for this issue, I'm sure as we go forward, this will kind of, flip back and forth. But Robot Guy really is the kind of main protagonist of this issue, at least for now. And even like the name of the book being Superguy, Anthony, you kind of said kind of goes into that idea of how Robot Guy is like doesn't get the credit, and Joey, exactly what you just said, like Superguy is all about the credit. Yeah. So I just want to talk about like where did you come up with this idea for like I feel like it's an obvious idea thread to go to like having a sidekick, but having this kind of wanting to be a hero, but and maybe you can correct me on this if maybe I'm wrong, doesn't necessarily want the spotlight. And obviously has a very checkered past, if you would, which we don't have to get too much into because obviously that's definitely going to be dealt with heavily in some future issues.
For sure.
Yeah, Robot Guy, man. Where'd that little freak come from?
So like I do have a really big sci-fi influence, right? But also Joey, I saw he did this one thing. So like way before we did Superguy, he has like the Last Supper with all these great fictional robots, like the Iron Giant, and R2-D2, and a Dalek, like all the good ones, Bender. And I just loved it. It was one of the coolest. Seriously, Joey, I'm not just saying this to gas you up. Just like one of the coolest pieces of art I've ever seen. I have a sticker of it somewhere. It's never getting stuck on anything because it's too precious. Like it's just one of those stickers. But I just really loved his robot designs, and I love sci-fi, and I love the idea of like androids and robots and just that sort of thing. And so like, you know, I love Bender, and I especially love Clank from Ratchet and Clank. Like, you know, I guess there's a little bit too much Ratchet and Clank influence in this comic, but like Clank is a really cool robot in that like he's very robotic, but then he's also very emotional, and like he has very like soft human sides in a lot of ways, or reactions to things. And I thought that would be really funny for a sidekick robot, and B, just like it would be different. I don't know. Like I haven't seen a robot sidekick. You know, I guess Superman has some. Like we just saw that trailer. Superman does have some robot sidekicks, but I think that's a little different. Like I wanted, I don't know. Like I think a big part of it is really just that I knew Joey. Like I was trying to play to Joey's art, or what I thought were his strengths from what I've seen and just loved. And so like I just thought a robot character would be perfect.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I absolutely loved it. I think it is perfect. And Joey, going back to your design of the robot, something else I love is like he is a robot, like a classic robot. And I don't know, I feel like there's a big trend these days. Like every robot's got to be like an android or, you know, human like. So I love that you made him like an actual robot, and like you can still give him emotions and stuff, especially with the jokes.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's what I was going for. Like, how could I have it like as stoic looking, but also be able to have so much character emanating from this little guy? And he honestly is my favorite to draw. I love Robot Guy. He's my favorite. But
yeah. Sorry, I was just gonna say he's my favorite character. I don't like again if he goes bad, if he became evil, I think I would still be on Robot Guy's side. But Joey, really quickly before we get into kind of what's coming next and the Kickstarter, I want to go back very quickly to something Anthony mentioned. We talked about very briefly, but the action of this book and kind of the Invincible influence, because I can definitely see that. Especially, I don't want to spoil anything, but the splash page of the two characters fighting like through the city totally got those vibes from it. So I'm obviously a super big comic nerd, and those kind of things really fascinate me. So when you're going through this fight scene, how are you kind of structuring it in your mind? Again, like kind of how we talked about fitting it into panels, like, oh, this should be a splash page as opposed to this.
That's a good question. Well, the splash page was planned as a splash page. Reading the script, I wasn't entirely sure. I kind of had a vague idea of what I kind of wanted to have it look like, but actually for that particular one, big influence was the cover variant that a friend of ours did. I forget who was the artist, but it
Dominique.
Yeah, so good. I saw it and I was like, oh my god, like how, like that's exactly how it should look. And so like I had that in my mind when I was drawing it to kind of be like capture kind of the same energy while making it like, you know, ours and my own, because I didn't want to, you know, copy, because you don't do that. But it was a fun, interesting challenge, the whole fight, because like I'd never really drawn fight scenes before, let alone like superhero robot sidekicks duking it out and just leaving a path of destruction. Invincible was a pretty big inspiration, at least, you know, visually, for, you know, the chaos and mayhem that has been left behind, and kind of how to frame like fighting in like midair and like crashing through buildings. And I was reading the comic while I was drawing this, and so like I had kind of like that visual language, you know, in me, and I was rewatching the show at the same time, and just like kind of remembering, like for some shots, like flipping through like mangas and stuff where there's lots of like epic just duke outs, and it's like, oh yeah, how did they make that look? I can kind of see it. Let's do it like that. And like a lot of that kind of influence all kind of mixed up and poured into the page, and now we got what we got. That's pretty good.
Well, I'll tell you, man. I mean, doing like one panel, comic, strip style comics, to going from a full fight scene happening over multiple pages, multiple panels. Not only did you kill it, but that is more than impressive, my friend, because
thank you.
Not only really great, but it is also something I always kind of look at with fight scenes. Like, it's very easy to read. Like, the eye travels very naturally with the fighting. Like, never once did I feel like I didn't know where I was and all that. So, I mean,
great.
Absolutely hats off to you for that.
Thank you.
The fight is great. And going kind of off the fight again with the same theme of that, there's more to Superguy than just the jokes, the gaffes, and the laughs. So my last question for you guys before we get to the plugs and all the awesome rewards you guys got on the Kickstarter, I just want to ask you guys, what is something that you guys hope that readers will take away from Superguy, whether it's just this first issue, or, God willing, we get 100 issues, however many issues of Superguy we get. What do you hope that, readers will take away besides just obviously a good laugh, but besides just a good laugh? Anthony, I'll throw it off to you first.
Yeah, for sure. A good laugh. I really like one of my goals in making this and including so much action, like including some of these more dramatic moments, was to show that like we could make a comic, like I feel like comedy as a genre is kind of, I don't know why, like in comic books, it seems like it's looked down upon, or publishers do not care about it, or can't find good ones, or don't want to bother. I don't know why. It's just kind of few and far between, I think. And so I want to show that we can make a really good comedic comic. They can exist. People are out there that could make really good ones. And then like with all the action, just showing like, maybe, that's not what you're here for. You're not here for comedy. That's okay. We could also do other things, like we have a lot of tricks up our sleeves. And that's, I think, what I want people to walk away from. Like, this is, yes, Joey has done these one panel comics and, like doing things on his own, but like, this is our like first real deal comic, right? Like this is our first one. So like, we're coming out hard for like with this one comic. So like, if this is the only comic we ever made, I would be proud of that. Of course we want to make more, but like we put so much work into this. Joey's been working on this for so long. Every day we've been just texting just to get this right, like, and I hope that shows, I think it shows like we knew we had so much confidence putting this out there. Right. Like we're just so proud of the work we did. And I just hope people come out for it and see that, like the support has been unreal for the Kickstarter already, but we really we want people to read this. And like we've been on a bunch of these so far. Not everyone has actually read it, which is fine, like, your own business if you want to read it or not, but like everyone's been supportive. So don't get me wrong. But what I'm saying is like, I like the way like you have engaged with it. And that's what I want people to do, to engage with Superguy and Robot Guy. Like you want 100 issues, and everyone who reads it is asking us like, when's the omnibus coming out, and blah, blah, blah. It's funny. And it encourages us so much, but like, that's what we want to hear, So if everyone could read it and feel that way, like, that would make me feel so good.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. I just want people to want more, want them to read it, like it, love it, maybe make a cartoon out of it. Who knows?
Yo, Superguy would work perfectly for a cartoon. And I mean, I think just the concept alone works beautifully with, there's just so many adventures that Superguy could go on. And I mean, you're the writer, you're not me, but I mean, I can imagine, long arcs, very short, just like, one issue adventures. Like, I just feel like the kind of world that you've created and the format really lends itself for a very wide open lane of where you may be going with that. And speaking of where you may be going with that, so currently the book is on Kickstarter. We're recording this, I don't even know what day it is, April 9th. So today's April 9th. Hopefully we're going to get this out as soon as possible. But currently the book is still on Kickstarter. I know we have some really cool rewards going on with that. Also, we have a variant cover from friend of the show, Sean Von Gorman from The Pedestrian. So what else do we got? What else can the people expect? and also future of Superguy. Is this going to be dependent on this early Kickstarter, or are plans already in the works for issue 2?
All right, let me talk about that first. So, like, the Kickstarter was funded in 4 hours. Like, that blew our fucking mind. Yeah, like, it's not what we were expecting.
Let's go.
Like,
yes,
right?
people. I love it.
So that's like right now we're like triple funded. So that takes away all doubt that whether people want this or not. Well, if you didn't want it, I'm sorry. Now you're getting it. Like, it, you know, like
too late.
It's your fault. Yeah, it's too late. You shouldn't have supported us so hard. So it's coming. There's no doubt about that. There's a second script already written, not finalized, but Joey's already read it. So we're on track for issue 2. Right now, 4 issues in mind. Could be more, but 4 issues seems reasonable for a trade in this day and age. You know, if a publisher read this first issue and wanted to pick us up, that would be awesome. It's not anything we're you know, betting our hopes on or anything like that. Like, but so we're definitely planning on making more. We have plans already. You know, we know, you know, possibly like the way we've talked about it, we probably know at least 2 arcs already. Like we're already, if you've read the comic, you'll see that we're already setting up more villains, you know, like not just the funny ones, but bigger threats, bigger bads. And we have a lot of plans for this. So it's Superguy's not going anywhere. Like that's my main focus. So I definitely plan on trying to get, you know, that second script finalized as soon as possible so that we could get issue 2 out. And then the Kickstarter, we just have, like you said, we have a lot of cool variants. The Sean Von Gorman variant is awesome. It was a stretch goal that happened like pretty much instantly. Like that cover was like very last minute. It was created pretty much right after the Kickstarter went live. The Kickstarter went live. So it's not a reward, but it's a stretch goal that you could add on. So like, for instance, we have the complete cover pack, which has Joey's cover plus the 3 variants, but it doesn't include the Sean Von Gorman one, because like I said, it was just like a later edition. We do have stickers that are really cool. They're actually on their way to my house, so they're already printed. I have a bunch, all designs from Joey. We got a cool Superguy audio adventure that we're recording with the guys of Comics and Chronic. That's going to be the Superguy one-shot in an audio form. You know, like we said, we like Superguy, we could see it as an animated show, but I think Superguy could just exist in a lot of different ways. So we're going to, you know, this is an experiment to see how Superguy translates to something like that. But I think that's going to be a lot of fun. We have the Superguy ash can. There's limited quantities of that. Luckily, we still have a bunch left. But that is the one shot in physical form. So if you miss that, you'll get that. A lot of free stuff too. Let me point that out. If you're a digital backer, you're going to get, if you're a digital or physical backer, you're going to get a pack of digital comics from a bunch of creators across the comic book community. I got like over 20 at this point. People sent me either a preview of their comic or a first issue of their series. And everyone's going to get that for free, whether you're a physical or digital backer. Physical backers, if you could see this Superguy logo right here, it's from Wham Stand. They make all these Whamblems. They're magnets, essentially, or you could put it on a Wham Stand product. But everyone's going to get one of these for free. It's the Superguy logo. So everyone who backs it physically, I should say, is going to get one of those for free. Physical backers are also going to get a print from one of our variant cover artists, Dominique Barlow. Really cool art, but that's going to be free. Let's see. Am I missing anything for stretch goals?
So much good stuff.
I'll say, what more do you people need? I mean, come on.
What more do you want from us? Yeah, no,
Great
that's everything for the stretch goals at this point.
That's awesome, man. I mean,
we're offering a lot of stuff. We're trying to get you any way we can. There's also, sorry, I missed 2 of them. There's a Brian Box Brown story print that's really cool. Brian Box Brown's a great cartoonist. You should check out his stuff. And there's a Superguy Christmas card that Joey made that's really awesome. Just a fun add-on. And we even have like really like or higher tiers that some people actually took advantage of. One of them being that Joey will draw you into the second issue of Superguy, which is really cool.
I saw that.
And then also one of them is to be a guest on Comics and Chronic. That one's just, you know, more of a support thing. Like we have people on where we've never charged anyone to be a guest. I promise. This is just one of those things like, all right, I'll throw you some money to support, and I guess I'll come on the pod. You know, kind of more for like people in our lives that would never come on the pod because they're not like a comic creator or something like that. So yeah, we have a lot of stuff, and obviously a lot of people responded to it because again, we funded in 4 hours, and at this point, like I said, we're over 315% funded. So like,
Ooh.
yeah, you know, it's hard to ask for more.
Guys.
Thank you, because I know a lot of people have Kickstarters out there that aren't funded, or you know, they still need help with that. But like everything going forward is just helping us make more and more Superguy. You know, and if it sounds like, you know, everyone sounds like you, which I hope so, and they want more, that's it. We're in an ideal situation. So, like I said, the support has been unreal. And you know, this Kickstarter has been, again, first Kickstarter too. So yeah, there you go.
That's crazy. Again, congratulations, guys. That's just awesome.
Thank you.
Really, everyone out there, we've been talking about this for almost an hour now, and I'm pretty sure it's pretty clear, but I want to urge everyone out there, please go check out the Kickstarter. Go check out Superguy. I'm sure if you reach out to either Anthony or Joey, they'll be able to get your hands on a copy anyway, which leads me to our favorite part of the show, the plugs. So both of you guys, I'll throw it off to y'all. Plug yourself. What do you got going on? Obviously, we just talked about the Superguy. I'll also be throwing the link to the Kickstarter in the description of this video. So you don't even got to leave. Just go on the description, click that. Joey, I'll throw it off to you first. Where can the people find you? What do we got coming down the pipeline?
Excellent. Right here, Joe Ryan is my handle on both Instagram and Threads. Joe Ryan's Belt on Blue Sky. Blue Sky? That's what it's called, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, it's blue something. Yes, Blue Sky. Wow. And then you can see my Quickies comics on Instagram also at Quickies_comic. Yeah.
Nice.
And that's what we got.
Beautiful. Everyone go follow Joey. Go check out Quickies. And, of course, like I said, pick up Superguy. I guarantee you're going to enjoy it. Anthony, where can the people find you? And what's going on with Comics and Chronic? Where plug that as well. We got new episodes coming. What are Soprano Summer? Is Soprano Summer coming back or what? The fans want to know.
Damn! Wow. Okay, so I'm at Mr. Tony Nacho. I'm at Mr. Tony Nacho anywhere on social media. You'll find me on Blue Sky mostly these days, or I guess Instagram. So you know, find me anywhere with that name. I guess TikTok too, but I'm not. You know, I don't do too much on TikTok. Comics and Chronic, yeah, that's our weekly podcast where we eat an edible or smoke a little something and talk about a comic book or a movie or a TV show, you know, that would fall under, you know, a geeky or nerdy thing. It's not always like sometimes we talk about one episode. We talked about Titanic, you know, you never know what we're going to talk about, but mostly comics. And we're approaching episode 300. That's pretty cool. We're almost there. We've been doing this since 2021. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we you know, we have all our episodes for April in the can. I think Sopranos Summer, you know, we haven't even talked about that, but what we have talked about, so we just did Bat March, where every week we talked about a different Batman comic or movie. And so we're thinking to do a bunch of Fantastic Four, or at least we just haven't talked about any Fantastic Four, so maybe a couple of those. Nice. But then a bunch of Superman. Like, we haven't showed Superman enough love on the podcast. Yeah. So I would say look out for that, because the Superman movie's coming out and we got to read some Superman comics.
Hell yeah.
I think the world needs to read some more Superman comics, and I think that's a beautiful place to end off on.
Yeah.
Everyone go subscribe to Comics and Chronic. Go check them out. Also, again, go check out the Kickstarter for Superguy. I cannot recommend this book enough, and I cannot thank both of you guys enough for coming and chatting with me all about it. It has been such a blast. Again, this has been a long time coming, so it means that we have to absolutely do it again.
Hell yeah.
And
Hell yeah.
for all of you watching and listening out there, thank you for coming and checking this out. You can also follow Agents of Fandom pretty much everywhere. AgentsOfFandom.com, Agents Fandom on TikTok and Twitter, Agents of Fandom pretty much everywhere else. We have shows pretty much for everything that's on TV. We got Daredevil going on right now. We got I don't even know what else. We have, again, literally everything. If there's
Nice.
a TV show, we have it. So be sure to subscribe, hit that like button, do all that good stuff to let YouTube know that you like us and you like these videos. And other than that, we will see you guys all next time.